I want to talk about, when I mentioned the nuance, things that we usually don't focus on. The soft skills, the soft approaches of you being a professional, right? It is seldom for you to meet a STEM person who is very confident, very proactive, and very outgoing. It's because we have come to turn STEM people, as always, those who are invested in books. It's all about the books. It's all about, SPSS, coding and all that, and they don't think about anything else. But if you see the terrain, and I'll share a few resources with you, if you see the reports that is coming, especially with hiring, and especially what is changing in the area of performance, employers are not just looking at your ability to code. They are not looking at your ability to have the skills. Because if you think that you can code, there are thousands of people who can code. If you think that you are an expert in a field, there are thousands of people who are expert in the field. What will separate you from those thousands of people is the additional benefit, or what I call the icing on the cake, that you bring to the background. And think about this in terms of postgraduate studies as well. And Ruth and I have had this conversation several times. When you are applying to a master's program or even a PhD program, you think that, oh, my CV is so great. I have achieved all these, accolades. I have all these certificates, and so definitely I'm going to get it. And what we forget to think about is that they are also equally great candidates who are applying for the same resources that we want. You need to think about, what can I do to give me an aesthetic edge over my colleague? So that if they put me all of us on the same line, I will be sticking out my neck higher. Why? Because I have things that they do not have, right? And so communication is very key. It is very, very key. Nobody will know what is in your head or what you are passionate about unless you begin to speak it. And so I would encourage each and everyone here, take a course in communication, take a course in how to be proactive in sharing your ideas. Go to YouTube and see how these Kickstarters introduce their product. Or Shark Tank. If you go to YouTube, just Google Shark Tank and see how people come and they say, this is a product that I want you to invest in, and this product will solve this. What that would do for you would help you to be able to build a skill, to be able to communicate crystal clear, and also to be effective to win others' love to yourself, right? So communication is very key. I cannot speak more about this. So please think about that and invest yourself. Invest yourself. The second thing is, don't be shy to put yourself out there. And Augustina talked about it in celebrating small wins, right? It's called self-branding. And most of us, and I struggled with this when I came into the US, a decade ago, where I struggled to say any good thing that I was doing, because I came up from a culture that was more like, you don't brag. When you tell people, oh, I did this and I did this and this was the outcome. Oh, you are bragging. You are a braggart. We don't like braggarts, right? So my formative years, I spent all those years, thinking that talking about myself so much is not a good thing, until I got into very, murkier situations, applying for jobs where I go to the interview, and the hiring committee would tell me, oh, wow, this is an idea we never thought about. But they still end up giving the job to someone. And so one day, one of the hiring manager told me and said, Dennis, you need to focus on how you communicate what you are doing, how you sell yourself. It is what would differentiate you from the others, right? So when you think about AI, especially in the language module, there is one word that will come into mind, which is ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is not the only company that is within that area, right? There is Google, there's Microsoft, there are others that are not big corporations that are within that category. But why do you think that everybody, when we say AI or when we say, language modeling. The only thing that counts is ChatGPT. Is because of how they have managed to communicate the value so that it has become synonymous to it, right? When somebody says go online and go and search something, the first thing that comes to your mind is Google, because that is how we have been conscientized, and Google have done an excellent job branding themselves in that space. So think of yourself as a business, and you are a business, right? Whether you are in school, whether you want to start your own business, whether you want to work for someone, you are a business giving of service. How do you want people to know you? How do you want people to remember you? How do you want people to access your service? Learn to bring all together and be able to represent yourself in a manner that sells your abilities to people. So that is really, really, really key. The third thing that I want to talk about is identify your niche and stay there as long as you can. One of the dangerous advice that we give to people is, oh, you have time, you are young, you can make mistakes, and then when you make mistakes, you figure it out and you can pivot and you can go somewhere. And the truth of the matter is that Augustina did not become a doctor in 2 years. She did not become a doctor even in 5 years, even in 6 years, right? And so for you to become a professional in your field, it takes time. It takes really long time. And that time, what it does for you is that it helps you build that skills that nobody can take from you, right? You become a professional in the field. So somebody goes to Augustina and the person has confidence that irrespective, I know I trust this person to have the knowledge and the skill to be able to give me that medical or health advice that I need. And so think of yourself like that. If somebody wanted to patronize a business that you are starting, how am I going to trust that you have that skill? How am I going to trust that you can do what you say you can do? And so I would encourage each and every one of the fellows and those that are here is, if there is anything you can spend time to do, is spend time to find out, what is my niche? What am I passionate about, right? What problems am I excited to solve? What issues am I excited to have conversation about? You can start from there without even going into the research part and all that. What is my field? I tell a story. My mother never went into or never completed to becoming a nurse because she said she went, she liked all the academic things, but when it was time for practicals, she saw blood and she ran away. And that was the end that she could have become a doctor. I would have had a doctor in my family or a nurse in my family, who knows? Okay. But you need to be able to say, what can I have conversation about for hours without getting tired? We don't look at that soft or that, qualitative data, but that is where your niche is. I can have conversation about education. I can have conversation about my religious belief. I'm a staunch Christian. I can have hours and hours. Sometimes I bore Ruth. I have conversation with Ruth. I can sometimes imagine we can be on the phone for 2 hours, 3 hours, and we are just talking about, about things that we both mutually love, right? If you are able to have those conversations, that is where your interest is. And then now what the research will do will be to bring, light on other areas where you can shed light on and become a valuable person, right? So that you can begin to build your skills and be able to offer a service to people who will love it. You can literally go find someone who is in that field, look at their credentials. What I did 10 years ago, I went online, I saw one person that I was very admired, and I looked at all their credentials. Education is usually you can't do much because at that time you might have already done your bachelor's or your master's, but you look at the skills that they are advertising. You look at the certifications that they have taken, right? Sometimes it may be steep in funds, But I tell you, there's always, the other version of it that is free. So you can blueprint your career path on someone that is already in the field, and as you go, you can leverage and then become more, honed on a specific area or skills that you want to focus on. So I cannot say enough about this, and I believe that this should be an ongoing conversation. And mentorship is not a one-time event. Also, be careful about predators out there. Okay, and I'm saying this because I'm particular with the female child, especially from females coming from outside of the world, where sometimes certain situations don't bring itself up, and we may get swooped into a certain kind of mentorship or relationship where we are not being we are not getting the best that we want. So if you want a mentor, you should have a rubric that you, as the one seeking the mentor, will go through and check every one of them to make sure that they meet a certain criteria that you have for you to call them your mentor. Okay, so that if you go have a mentor and then after first two conversations, all they are talking about is your beauty, all they are talking about is, can we have a personal moment where we can talk more, then it's red flag. Don't wait to get to a certain stage before you say, oh, I didn't know. Okay, because for you to become successful in your field as a woman, you need to be very confident in certain areas, and you need to be able to build a certain structure around yourself, and tell yourself that I don't have to stoop low. I don't have to go to a certain tangent to be able to get the advice that I'm getting. And so come up with a rubric that you would identify as someone that you want to mentor you. The person must be willing and open. The person must be able to lay certain boundaries and certain rubric or certain steps for you all to have a very mutual engagement. And if that person is just on a high basis, that person is not your mentor. That person should be able to pick a phone and call you, maybe once a week, twice a week, once a month, and say, hey, I just wanted to check up on you. What have you achieved this month? What are you focusing on? How can I be of help? Right? That is what mentorship is. Mentorship is not, oh, I know this person, and this person, is my mentor, but at the core, the person is not giving you anything that is advancing your career. Okay, so have that in mind and be very cautious out there so that you can absolutely confidently go for what you are seeking. I will not say this if it was not me, but again, I am a very religious person. The last nugget that I want to say, it is okay if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Christ, it is fine. But I would still share the good news, and I'll still share this fact with you. The world is a complex place. Whatever you are engaging in, think about it. There are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are engaging in that. And whatever will set you apart, I believe, is the God factor. The God factor is what shines light upon you. The God factor is what sets your path on where you need to go and grounds you very solidly so that you can look at certain ills in the face and say, even though this is very nice, I'm not going to go this because my God doesn't, or my walk with God doesn't allow me. You need to put God first in everything you do. And you need to be able to be vulnerable enough to commit your career, commit your life to Him, and say, this is, by my human standard, this is where I want to go. But based on my understanding from reading the Bible, I still want to give you the charge to lead me. And so thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to share one or two things with you.